All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming in on this beautiful Wednesday, the day before May Day, which I believe is tomorrow. So everybody's going to run and wrap around the maypole, I'm sure, tomorrow, which is a ton of fun. Bring candy to people you don't know. That's what we did when we were little. So for me, I want to start off with my Go Big. My Go Big is 73 years old. Yeah, 2 days ago on the 28th. So my mom turned 73. So the reason that I'm here, literally the reason that I'm here, um, just wanted to celebrate her and all the things that she did for me to bring me to this place and to be able to serve you guys as we do and create this team. So I just feel blessed really about the source. I'd say that today. So I'm going to celebrate the source of my existence. So with that, how about Ken?
Yeah, Chris, thank you. Great to be here with you. Mine goes to my dad too. It was yesterday, April 29th. He turned 75 years of age. I'm going to be 45 this year. My grandfather would have been 105. So there's a 30-year gap between us. And I screwed it up with my daughter. She's only going to be 14 this year. So I messed that up. But nonetheless, my dad, he's a good-hearted, easygoing, fun-loving guy. And that's the reason for my existence here as well, and the reason why I'm here as well as my father. So, happy birthday, Dad! Appreciate you very much.
Awesome. Thank you. Mr. Mann.
Chris, must be, I don't know what happened 9 months ago, but Sabrina's birthday was 2 days ago as well. She is 29 plus one. And so a pretty exciting birthday for her. And we had a really good time this last weekend. In a lot of different ways, her existence and where I'm standing right now is because of her. So I'll leave that up, and I'm looking forward to the life that we're creating together.
Nice. That's awesome. How about Zach?
I'll continue the birthday theme because today happens to be my birthday. So I'm grateful for another trip around the sun and just extremely grateful for being here at Gentian for the last 8 years now. And it's just unbelievably grateful for the life that I have because of Chris, the team, allowing the opportunity to serve each of our clients and the impact that each of you have had on me as well over the last 8 years. So just extremely blessed for the life that I have.
I appreciate that. Yeah, absolutely. I was going to celebrate that. I should have called on you last. I was going to go in proper order, but I went backward there. How about Ben?
Perfect. I'm going to end the birthdays. I'm not grateful for birthdays. No, I'm kidding. I'm very grateful for birthdays. But the one today that I'm grateful for is just learning opportunities, constantly learning with myself and trying to grow, and then also my baseball team learning. So grateful for lots of learning.
That's awesome. Awesome. Mr. Birchbach, how about yourself?
Thank you, Chris. Grateful, of course, for Zach. Today is his birthday, as he had mentioned. Just a wonderful human being, and a big part of the reason that I am here at Gentian. Save that story for another time, but also grateful for the opportunity to spend the Easter weekend with my grandfather, who I don't get to see a whole lot. He was a big part of my childhood. So really grateful for a lot of things this morning.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Ashley, how about yourself?
Thank you, Chris. I'm grateful for both health as well as technology. The advancements in our health industry have just helped our family out a lot, and I'm excited to see where it goes in the future.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So today we're going to talk about emergency savings. That'll be some of the big topics we have, along with some of our regular updates as well, and some of the things you should be looking forward to right now. As you're looking into May, we start to look into summer. There's been a lot of volatility. I'm not sure if you've noticed it, but if you haven't, there has been. So I just tell you that because I know a lot of you, I told you not to watch the news, and I'm sure you don't track your portfolio. So thank you for doing that. But with the volatility, which things that have happened, it's probably after a necessary bull run, which we've had for about 18 to 24 months, there's always some sort of necessary correction. The fear of humans is, let's call it, I usually call it pricked by, it's like a bubble that's pricked and you see fear happen very quickly. I think if you look, when I was at Montreal last week at the Global Top 50, the economists they brought around were quite interesting. I think they'd said that sentiment in the month of April, was riding high through March, and that's consumer sentiment up to like the number was 82 out of 100. It was really, really high. During the month, it fell in, I think, about 2 weeks to 52. It was an unprecedented drop in sentiment. Really, it never happened before. Happened very quickly, but fear, when it shows up, as we've always talked, shows up very quickly. You've gotten used to this as our clients. You guys have been great about it. You take advantage of it. Most of my clients do panic, though. Most of my clients panic to buy, convert, purchase, take advantage of tax loss harvesting, all the things that we've over the years taught. So if you're a newer client, I want to make sure that you understand lemonade made out of lemons is something that we do. I've heard it before, but it's absolutely true. So we're just as excited in any port. When the markets are flying, we're actually a little bit less excited than when they're actually volatile. We can do some great things when they're volatile as well. And it also, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And markets are no exception to that as well. So as I look at some of this volatility, the consumer sentiment, the 4 days in April where the market dropped, I think almost 20%, those were somewhat unprecedented for volatility, but normal for volatility today. I think I've told you before, be prepared to live a life faster than you expect. Things are moving at unbelievable pace. So when that happens, you're going to find younger founders of companies. You're going to find, kids graduating from school at 13 and 14, just all sorts of things you've really never thought of before, maybe you've heard of, and they were exceptions. Things are beginning to happen that way. Matter of fact, one of the statements one of my compatriots said, and one of the teachers we had at the Montreal program said that most likely cancer will be cured by somebody in a garage because they're going to have the same tools as your physician. Quite honestly, interesting statement, right? It was by Zach Cass. He was one of the founders of OpenAI, along with Sam Altman, but I wanted to share that with you as well. So as we get back into emergency savings for times like these in volatility, I think we have a lot of perceptions about what we should use that for. The market's down a bit. We should be using this emergency fund. Emergency funds are really set up for deep corrections, for long-term corrections. If you haven't been through one yet, if you're under, say, 40 years old, and you don't really remember 2009 or 2000, those are protracted 1 and 2 year timeframes. So we'll talk more a little bit about those, but I don't want to steal anybody's thunder today. Why don't we go first to Mike's Minute? What's going on, Mike?
Thanks, Chris. And the volatility that we have right now is a wonderful example of why we have emergency funds for those short-term expenses, those unexpected things that may come up, so that we don't have to dip into our stock portfolios that could be temporary depreciated. I want to talk a little bit about how markets are moving right now, and just share a little bit of some things, something that I'd like to call, and I'm sure somebody else has said it first, so I won't take credit for it, but headline risk. It's very easy to read a headline and jump to a conclusion before knowing the actual breadth of the entire story itself. And an example here is about GDP. We just got the first estimate, which I'll talk about that in a second. And it comes in at negative 0.3% below consensus. That's the headline. What actually happened? Well, GDP was actually up 0.3% year over year, which doesn't qualify that first ticking point for a recession, which is 2 negative periods of GDP growth. But regardless of that fact, by taking a look at that headline itself, it almost looks like the growth of the economy was negative. It wasn't. It grew just a little bit less than what folks had thought that it may. And so with that being said, regardless of that, whenever estimates aren't realized, we see volatility typically on the downward side of things. For the most part, when we talk about earnings growth, forecasts, things like that, the S&P 500 actually, for the most part, when you look at historical outperformance in each earnings quarter, they beat estimates by like 77% of the companies come out and do something in that regard. Somewhere in that 70% range is how often companies actually beat estimates, which I think is incredibly interesting. Something that's happening right now with companies who are reporting is that they're actually taking away their forward guidance. So they're not actually making speculation of how much they might be earning in the future. And that's creating more uncertainty because, I mean, it's quite literally the definition of such. They're looking at what's going on in the world as things needing to sort themselves out before they can create an accurate picture for folks to be able to see what happens. So that uncertainty is rattling the markets. We're seeing volatility as we will continue to do so. But in all regards, Zach's going to kind of go through year-to-date returns, and I think you're going to hear some numbers that might surprise you a little bit. So thank you, Chris.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Yeah, great insight as well. Why don't we go to Zach's Facts? Zach, what's up? Give us an idea of what we should be paying attention to.
That word volatility, it's one of those things that volatile we assume is always a negative, but volatility goes both ways, which we saw over the last 2 weeks and really over the last month, where there's been about a 10% recovery in certain asset classes coming into today. And also the best days often quickly follow the worst days. Sometimes it's within a few days of the worst days, like we saw earlier this month. Historically, within 20 days of the worst day, the best day occurs as well. So volatility goes both ways and is extremely exciting to watch too. So Chris mentioned it as well. Fear is great for the headlines. So when they talk about markets, they rarely talk about the S&P, the NASDAQ, they talk about the Dow Jones because it's the biggest point value. This morning, as an example, it says Dow Jones slides 400 points. Like, wow, 400's kind of a big number, right? It's 1%. So just be aware of points versus percentages and what the purpose of news outlets is to attract viewers. Best way to do that is through striking fear in each of us. So the Dow Jones temporarily down around 6% on the year as of market open today. The S&P temporarily down 7. These are about 7% better. The S&P is 7% better than it was 2 weeks ago during our last bi-weekly. The NASDAQ temporarily around 11. That's 50% weighted towards technology. So those kind of represent those big technology companies. The Russell 2000, which is those smaller sized companies, small caps and mid caps, temporarily down 11. And then where the really exciting part of asset allocation comes in is that international is actually up 10% on the year. So emerging markets also positive 3%. And when it comes to asset allocation, diversification, bonds are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing as well and creating a safe haven. And Chris mentioned it and kind of applying this towards emergency funds. Usually when we think of emergency funds, we think of it, it's some money that's inside the bank that's there in case of emergency in our scenario, something that occurs in our house that was unexpected, something that unexpected in life. But we also create emergency funds within the portfolio. And as Chris mentioned, we're really nowhere close to tapping into those right now. Before market close yesterday, depending on the strategy that you have, even though S&P, NASDAQ closer to 10% temporarily down, portfolios were nowhere close to that number, oftentimes less than half of that or even close to flat for the year. So that's not a time to tap into those emergency funds. That's why we call lifeboat drills, having that ready, and building emergency funds within the portfolio as well. And I'll let the rest of the team talk about kind of regular emergency funds.
Well, Zach, you're talking a lot about volatility, and I just got to ask you a question. You know what gives me butterflies?
What's that?
Caterpillars.
Nice.
Anyway, so as we go on here, it's a good one as we move on here to spring. I think I like that one. Thank you, Zach, for the insight as well. And remember, I was just talking to a client the other day too. This client has been here a long time. We have between 7 to 10 or 12 years of fixed income and alternatives that we can draw on if markets were so difficult. So there's a lot of things that we can look at here, deep fundamental pieces we have built into your portfolio. We may need to explain again, but they're there. So I appreciate that. Ashley, why don't we break it up from the guys and let's go to Ashley, the center right in all of us, the pillar for all of us. Give us some of your wonderful advice. Ashley's advice. I changed it again today, but that's kind of fun.
Thank you. Yes. So sticking with today's theme, unexpected repair costs in our houses can add up quickly when it comes to appliances as well as systems within our home. So today I bring up the idea of home warranties with everyone. And if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen. And I just want to touch on what home warranties are available and of course, bring up the solution of are they worth it? So first of all, what is covered? So within home warranties, they've covered both your appliances as well as our systems. So our HVAC systems, our air conditioners, and those again can add up very quickly when it comes to costs. So these are covered under home warranties. How do they work? So when you do find a company that you've both vetted, of course, and are looking to, let's say you have an issue with your appliance at home, your air conditioner goes, you call them, they have a provider that will come out to your house, assess the issue, and you pay a fee of about $50 to $100 for that service technician to come out to the home. And of course, then they would replace it if it is covered under your home warranty. So again, a very simple cost as well as peace of mind. You don't have to look for that technician. You don't have to go out and hunt for that appliance, and all of that expense is covered. So again, we kind of touched on annual costs of a home warranty can range anywhere from $300 to $600. So again, this can be done annually and it is usually renewed automatically. So that's just something to pay attention to when you are doing some research or looking into these home warranties. Again, there's usually an automatic renewal to pay attention to. Benefits, of course, include just keeping our wallet more full and your home covered with peace of mind. Limitations can be if something is previously damaged or flooding. Again, those things would be covered under your home insurance. And then how to select the best provider. So if you do some research out there, I would search best rated companies as well as best reviewed companies that you may want to take a look at. Just some qualifications that you'll want to pay attention to, as of course, there's both good and bad companies out there to get our homes covered by. So again, just trying to save you some money, of course, in your wallet, but as well as taking care of our homes. So consider a home warranty as a solution for that. Back to you, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. I know I always thought that home warranties were only to be sold when a house was bought or sold. They were typically transferred that way. So I think that's a good piece of information. Thank you for letting us know that as well. Let's go to Mr. Birschbach. Michael Birschbach, how about yourself?
Thank you, Chris. I'm going to talk this morning a little bit about the emergency fund and answer the question directly right now. So what is the right amount? A good rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months of non-discretionary expenses, or in other words, really cover the bills and the things that you need. The idea behind this really is to buy you some time in the event of a job loss or a repair cost, potentially some sort of emergency that really depletes a lot of the cash or savings that you have on hand. It just buys you some time. So where you're putting that cash to get a little bit of a higher yield right now, CDs, money market funds, high yield savings accounts are paying somewhere between 3.5% and 4.5%, which can always change. If you look at your standard checking or savings account, they're likely going to pay you a pretty significant fraction of what some of those instruments can earn you. So a really important piece of this too is maximizing yield, but also understanding liquidity or your access to that money. So if you're looking at CDs or some other instruments, there may be a time requirement in order to get that stated yield or whatever percentage they're agreeing to pay you. So make sure that you're looking into that and understanding what your access to that money actually is. So just a really important piece of planning. It's not necessarily a long-term investment, that being cash or some of that savings, but it's a really important runway when it comes to starting or building a financial plan, because it's going to give us some tax flexibility and a little bit of cushion when it comes to needing to access funds as well. Back to you, Chris.
Thank you very much, Mr. Birschbach. I appreciate that. Let's head over to Mr. Ken Flannery.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. And yeah, we're talking about emergency funds versus cash reserves. Sometimes those are two different things. It depends on which phase of life you're in as well. And I'm sure someone has already mentioned this, so if I'm duplicating it, I apologize. But emergency fund is when you're working, you have obligations outside of yourself, basically, right? Then you have the retirement phase, which a lot of I see that are on the Zoom right now are already there. And when you look at cash reserves, Chris mentioned it beautifully. We have it built into your portfolio, right? But a lot of you have somewhere between, again, the dollar amount is hard to judge because it really is specific on what's coming down the pipeline for us. What do we see for the future? What kind of experiences have we had in the past with emergencies or things that have come out of the blue? But I typically see somewhere between like $30,000 to $60,000 of cash that retirees typically have somewhere, whether it's in a money market fund with us, whether it's a CD, money market savings, whatever the case is. Then we also have, in addition to that, your income reserves, and that's built into the portfolio. So just want to make that distinguishing factor there between, while we're working versus retirement as well, that piece there. So one thing I want to talk about today, I've been fortunate enough to be in meetings with Chris, and I've seen Chris coach, and I've been able to do this with a few others as well, on the idea of negotiating retirement. I thought this is a really, really interesting topic, and I've seen it done a few times now. And sometimes when we're getting ready to retire, we have this fear a little bit of like showing our hand or showing our cards, right? We're like, oh my gosh, if I say I'm going to retire, then all of a sudden I might be out 2 weeks from now. And what we found out is that actually isn't the case all the time, right? Sometimes it is, depends on your employer and relationships that you have there. But a lot of times it's like, hey, if we just negotiate that and kind of elegantly walk through that conversation and say, hey, I'd love to stay on, I just don't want to do it 5 days a week anymore. I'd rather do it like 2 or 3 days a week. And I love to hear Chris's opinion on this as well and the way that he coaches clients, because it's becoming more of an idea. Some companies help you retire. Some companies actually like help you slow down for like 2 or 3 days a week. And it's actually built into a plan for like 6 months. But some companies aren't like that. But if you have that conversation, and Chris, if you don't mind, I'd love to hear what your thought is on this idea of negotiating retirement.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, it's good. No, I'm just kidding. It's pretty funny. I felt that was good. But so what I did years ago, it started with a major university here. It rhymes with Piquette in Milwaukee. And they used to have a lot of professors and they didn't want to leave. So what was interesting, they really wanted to retire, but they have something called tenure. So you can really stay as long as you want when you have tenure. So there was no formal program between the university and between the professors. So I started something called a tenure buyout negotiation. And it was pretty significant. I first said, hey, why don't you pay me 10 years and you can buy me out? And they go, well, they laughed, no way. But it was 10-year buyout. So I thought it was pretty funny. But we started with that. We started negotiating that piece. We found that we got 1 to 2 years for each professor. And then they decided that they'd had enough of the negotiations after 3 to 4 or 5 years. And they decided to put a formal program in. But along the way, I'd been talking with people about saying, hey, listen, what I hear a lot from you is that and this is how we do it, your superior officer, whoever you report to, often needs to reduce headcount in some way. Is it possible that you could work yourself out of a job? Could you replace what you're doing and help them accomplish something as well? So we approach it this way. Hey, listen, don't tell them you're going to retire. Don't tell them you want to. Is say, I was thinking about working another 4 or 5 years. But what I understand is I know that you need to reduce headcount. If you were willing to offer me something, I would be willing to maybe step away earlier if there was some sort of a package or discussion of it. And it's simply a discussion. You're opening it up in a nice, kind way when you have a good relationship with your reporting officer. And I would say in the majority, above 50% of it have ended up in something positive. So let me give you one sample too. One of my clients went to a state down south. And I said, hey, listen, you might want to go back and talk to your human resources group because they are giving an offer right now. And the offer was 2 weeks per year there. The person had been there for 40 years. So they received 80 weeks of pay and named their pool after me. Just FYI. So there are some great ramifications, but I probably can give you in the last 3 years, 5 scenarios right now where the discussion resulted in an offer. Even this, the intention of having the discussion. So you'd be surprised what shows up if you ask. I'm going to guarantee one thing. If you don't ask, it probably won't happen. The answer is no. So anyway, Ken, that's a little bit about it.
Very good, Chris. Appreciate it. Back to you, my friend.
Oh, I'm not ready now. I had to. No, I'm just kidding, Ken. That's interesting. So one thing I thought that is very interesting about this as well, as you go through the 10-year buyout, a lot of people hadn't thought of it. And it's something that you've had there for a long time. And as Ken said, there's a lot of new ways to ramp down the end of work. So one thing we've talked about is practicing retirement. I think it's a really good idea to take a look at what retirement really looks like, because we're going to have times like these where things are fairly volatile. We're going to have times like 2009 where things are actually down for 1 or 2 years. We need to practice in a time that's quite rough. Can we actually sustain the budget that we have? In good times when things are always up, we can always take a little bit of extra income and it seems like it's always great, right? Because the market keeps growing. But it's going to be times where the market doesn't perform that we also have to be prepared for as well. So just taking a look at those, I thought that was fairly important. Let me, so I've got a couple of things here I'll mention after we talk with Ben, but Ben, why don't you give us what we should pay attention to?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Chris.
Mhm.
We got plenty that's going on here at Gentian in the month of May, and we're starting hitting the ground running right away with May 1st. Tomorrow, we got our Fireside Theater day trip. We're excited to see those clients that came with us are going to be joining us tomorrow for a little fun day trip to see the Fireside Theater, which I think will be wonderful. Then May 11th, don't forget, Mother's Day. Remind those mothers that, hey, thank you for doing what you do. They make a lot of sacrifices in our lives. So we have a lot of things to thank for our mothers. So don't forget about that. Then May 14th, we hit it off with our next bi-weekly podcast, 10 ways to save for college. So please tune back in. We'd love to chat with you more about those best ways to save. And then we're doubling up with Gentian things on May 14th. And right after that, another Zoom of health and wealth. Top 10 tips for longevity. We have Michelle Norris, who's one of the leading experts in her field. She is top notch, one of the best. She's coming in to do a video presentation Zoom for you guys to check out how to live longer, which is more and more inevitable these days. So please tune in there. That's that's a great opportunity for you guys there. That's outside of just your wealth. It's also your health, because what good is your wealth without the health? Next thing we were talked about at the beginning of the podcast with our Go Big birthday club. May birthday club will be May 21st. So please RSVP by May 14th. We'd love to have you there and the doors open at noon. And then just a little friendly reminder, May 26th, it is Memorial Day. So our office and the markets will be closed that day. So just kind of a heads up there. Then May 28th, we got our next bi-weekly video podcast for the month. What is 529 Day? You're gonna have to wait and find out what that is. But if you have a little bit of idea, there may be a theme for what May's podcast may be. There's your little hint for you there. So come join us and find out what May 529 Day actually is. And then the last day of May, last event of May is Ladies and Gentian, 10 a.m. So May 28th, come join us. We still have 12 spots available, so we'd love to have you come be a part of it. But RSVP also by May 14th. Then we still got more coming down the pipeline. This is heads up for what's going on in June. We got our kids camp. More details to come here, but just want to put that, save the date, keep an eye out for June 25th. I'm sorry, June 25th. More details to come for your kids camp. And then also in July, we got Rise and Shine at Foxtown Station in Mequon. That's going to be an evening event, 5:30 to 8:30. Again, stay tuned for more details on that. We love to share more once we have that all buttoned up as we get closer. And then the last kind of save the date that we have for now is September 8th. Our shred event will be 11 to 2 on that Monday. So stay tuned. As always, there's plenty here happening at Gentian, and we are excited to just be partners with you guys. All right, back to you, Chris.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Ben. A lot going on, it sounds like, as well. A couple of different things that I found kind of interesting here. I'm not sure, we always talk about security and stuff as well. So I just got an email from Google Maps that Google Maps can read maps backwards. It's obviously spam. Think about it, you'll spell it, I get it. Anyway, I wanted to go through just one or two things here as I've got about 1 or 2 minutes left. We got two comments. One is one of our good friends, Jeff, had said he 100% agrees. He's seen it work most of the time when we were talking about that 10-year buyout, and that was our good friend, Jeff Van Stratton. So he, in the comments here in the Q&As, you can actually ask questions. Feel free, we can go through it. I think Corinne, our good friend down in Atlanta, said that if you can afford it, it can be healthy to retire and open yourself to new experiences, perspectives, and relationships. If you're not sure about how you'll use your time, skills, and intellect, you can volunteer. Lots of great opportunities to give back and still feel valued. And she's done that in a ton of different ways over the numerous years since she's retired as well. So it's a great thing, I think, as we go through that. Just wanted to make sure we had both of those that we covered as well. So if you guys have any questions, always feel free to submit those to us or comments as well. If they're really, really tough, I'll reach out to one of the guys. If they're really easy, I'll answer them. Two things. So we had a gentleman named Keith Arazi talked about something called Teamship when we were up at the Global Top Advisors Program. And that was an interesting one. He really talked about a new concept called Teamship, which we'll talk another time. But the most important one was actually Zach Cass, one of the co-founders of OpenAI with basically Chat.GPT, which most everybody uses today in some form. And if you haven't, once again, I encourage you to use it. The future is faster than you think. And I did something. He made this comment. He said that whatever you possibly can imagine is possible, and you can now start to see the way toward it. But if you went back 100 years, our ancestors would think we are superheroes today. So it's a really good point. Go back 100 years, and with what we have today, this phone that carries everything with it, the fact that you can jump on an airplane and feel completely inconvenienced that you're 10 minutes late, these are things that they weren't even fathomed. It's now becoming inconvenient. So each generation passes our latest discoveries on to the next generation as a commodity. Think about that. So what's interesting is those commoditizations of discoveries and miracles are happening instantaneously. Sometimes now when something's discovered, people thought, oh, I thought that already happened. We actually don't even celebrate that it happened. New discoveries in health, longevity, new discoveries in mental capacity, people don't even celebrate those. So I'd say one thing if I could really take a moment right now to stop us and think about it. Take a moment and celebrate something that's occurred, some miracle that's occurred. Here, one sample. We went through Chicago traffic a week ago to go to my daughter's last volleyball tournament of the year. Anybody here driven through Chicago traffic? Oh, yeah, yeah, I see the hands, yeah. It's not the best, I'll just leave it at that's the 6th most congested city in America. I wouldn't want to be in the top 5 if that's the case. But when you get to it, it now has a go-to assist tool in my car, which essentially, if in my wife's car, which essentially it stop and go driving, it'll move. You don't have to touch anything, the wheel, you don't have to touch the gas or anything. So we just took a nap. It was great. Did not do that, I'm joking. But it's amazing to see what this thing is able to do. And in Chicago traffic, you got to be careful because people dart in and out. But this thing handled it incredibly. So instead of going, oh, yeah, it should work really well, I celebrated. I flipped to appreciation. It's so easy to flip to inconvenienced or commoditization of miracles. I think today, gratitude and amazement. And more importantly, I think there's a three-letter word I'd like to use today, which is awe. Be awful. AWE-FUL, full of awe. 2 L's, I'm sorry. Because there are so many things that are happening that are unfathomable to our great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers. So take a moment today, appreciate some of the things that are truly miracles to them that we now just take for granted. So with that, we want to make sure that we thank you tremendously for the introductions you're giving to us. Remember, as a firm, we think that you are number one. We want to spend all our time on you. So what we've done is partnered with you to introduce us to people that you think we should talk to, and you have done a phenomenal job. Some of the awards you see coming across are yours. Those are all yours, and it's for the introductions that you continue to give us. We'll keep our focus on you. Thank you for keeping your eyes out for people for us. We want to make sure that you understand that. With that, I want to say thank you from our galactic headquarters here in Mequon, Wisconsin. It's also our global and our state headquarters as well. But I want to make sure that you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you for your time today. Most importantly, thank you for your trust in us. We'll continue to go out and do the research and do the investigation and love meeting with you as well. With that, have a great rest of your week here from this wonderful Wednesday. We will see you in 2 weeks. And we actually look forward to one of our May programs, as somebody said, 529 planning. With that, have a great day. Take care.